I'm here on this stage today because of a pact I made 10 years ago with my friend Sophie in the back of a car after our friend Chris's funeral. Chris had died by suicide. We were in our hometown of Newcastle in the UK, and I was used to public speaking. I had just delivered Chris's eulogy, and I was relieved to be spending a moment alone with Soph. I'd known her since high school, and she was a fierce supporter of my work as a positive psychologist, cheering me on at my first book launch. She was gorgeous, Miss Great Britain, a contestant on a reality TV show, brave, bold, and very fun. I remember everything about that day. Sophie and I were in the back of my SUV, holding hands, and we had glasses of champagne for a toast, remembering Chris. She was crying, I was crying. And if you've ever lost someone close to you who's died by suicide, you'll know that one suicide is too many. So in that moment, we made a pact with each other. No one else can die by suicide. We can't let this happen to another one of our friends. 3 years later, our friend Sarah took her own life. A year after that, Sophie died by suicide too. Nothing could have prepared me for Sophie's death. It made me question everything. I'd spent my entire adult life studying positive psychology, which is the science of happiness and how people can thrive. She believed in this work as well. So why was the pact broken? Did positive psychology even work? And if it did, why couldn't I save my friend? After Sophie's death, I was desperate for answers. I began researching suicidology, which is the study of suicide. And I found that there was a link between suicide and a loss of hope. But then I went deeper into my own work in positive psychology and found that the tools that were previously known to move us from good to great were also proven to help protect mental health, build hope, and that hope could prevent suicide. I want to stress that we're not talking about crisis intervention here, rather that positive psychology can be powerful for suicide prevention. My books, my work, this talk is all part of the pact that I made with Sophie to make sure nobody else dies by suicide. 3 of my close friends took their own lives, and still I wholeheartedly know positive psychology does work. We just don't get to decide who we save. We do get to trust that when we do the work on and for ourselves and act with intention to support each other, then collectively we can create a shift where more lives will be saved. I'm here to speak about the vital work that ensures that we and those around us keep going one more day. But before we can talk about prevention and the steps that we can take, we have to understand the problem. 2023 saw the highest rates of suicide worldwide in history that we have ever seen. In the 10 to 24 year age category in the US, it's the second leading cause of death, and it impacts youth disproportionately. Hispanic youth are 33% more likely to die by suicide. Young Black females are twice as likely to die by suicide compared with their white counterparts. Today, I actually got to meet someone in my team that I've been working with for 6 years, and she shared with me that one of her kids' friends last year, age 16, took his own life too. This is real, it's happening all around us, and the good news is there's something we can do to change it. Because whilst the statistics are alarming, suicide is still the most preventable cause of death. One of the reasons that suicide happens and the historical rates are so high is something called suicide contagion theory. This is the idea that when someone witnesses a suicide or has it happen in their family, their friendship group, or even in their wider community, that it becomes normalized. And then suicidal thinking and behaviors can increase because of that. Now think of this in a high school setting where a vulnerable child witnesses somebody taking their own life, now it feels like a more viable option for them to do that too. Roughly 135 people are impacted by every suicide. Around 720,000 people per year die by suicide. That's 97 million people or more that are impacted around the world. Now multiply that reach by social media, because social media is completely out of control. Currently in the United States, the most popular platform with youth is being sued by 14 states for endangering the mental health of children. We have to do better. Social media is giving us the illusion that we are more connected than ever before. But the reality is we are actually more disconnected than ever before. Loneliness statistics are the highest that they have ever been. We have not recovered from the pandemic. An American Psychiatric Association study showed that since COVID-19, a little less than half of Americans reported that their levels of loneliness had not improved. Another 25% said that they had gotten worse. And with social media comes another factor that is deeply contributing to these rates of suicide, and that is cyberbullying. I survived a suicide attempt when I was 11 years old, after being bullied terribly at high school. Since then, the changes in technology have shifted the way that we're able to build each other up and also tear each other apart. In 2018, just 3 months before Sophie took her own life, she spoke out at a cyberbullying conference about her time after appearing on a reality TV show, where she said the horrific abuse that she endured online made her descend into a dark place. Sophie said, and I quote, "It can end up with the victim taking their own life." She was 32 at the time. Can you even imagine how cyberbullying is impacting the youth of today? The link between cyberbullying and suicidal ideation is overwhelming. A recent American Medical Association report, where the average age of participants was just 12 years old, showed that when kids experience cyberbullying, they're 4 times as likely to experience suicidal ideation, thinking, and behaviors. And we know that the biggest risk factor to a successful suicide is a prior suicide attempt. So if we can prevent the attempt, we can prevent the suicide. But what can we actually, practically, tangibly do? Remember that statistic that I shared about 135 people being impacted by every suicide? Well, interestingly, what I also discovered is that when people apply the tools of positive psychology and we integrate them into our own lives, let's say a teacher helping a student, that student then supporting or helping a parent, that parent then giving to a coworker, positive actions impact 135 people. The exact same number of people that is impacted by suicide can also be positively impacted by this ripple effect. What I've realized is that positive psychology is actually suicide prevention with a different name, because hope can be learned. This is scientifically proven across decades of research. In 1967, Martin Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, deduced through experiments on rats, dogs, and people that when faced with inescapable life circumstances, eventually we learn that nothing we do matters. He called this learned helplessness. You might have heard of it before. Imagine the brain like a party. And when the party turns bad, a group of people, a cell structure called the dorsal raphe, well, they hand out some drinks, serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, which makes us feel calmer. Thus, we learn helplessness. Well, about 50 years later, Seligman actually realized that he got it backwards. We don't learn helplessness. We actually learn hope. Because when the dorsal raphe comes to the party, the prefrontal cortex gets a call. Now, think of this part of the brain like that fantastic party guest that completely turns the party around, because the prefrontal cortex is responsible for fueling us with hope. The feeling that what we do does matter and that the future can be better. So how can we create more hope? The big positive psychology concepts are deepening a sense of belonging and connection, finding more meaning and purpose, moving our body, and finding a sense of accomplishment. Using these big concepts, I created a tiny toolkit. This is a checklist of small practical actions that you can take that are grounded in positive psychology and that are proven to work. These might seem simple, but simple actions can create big results. They can help you to boost your positive emotions, deepen your sense of resilience, and activate a level of hope. Simple things like meditating, finding an accountability partner, or sending a gratitude text can help you boost your sense of belonging and connection. Tiny tools like creating a good person inventory, making a folder on your phone, journaling for 3 minutes, and getting outside into sunshine can deepen a sense of meaning and purpose. Taking actions like going for a walk, shaking out your entire body, dry brushing, can help reduce levels of anxiety, can help to support your nervous system, can help to alleviate stress. And it means we can start to use physical activity as a protective mechanism for mental health to prevent suicide. And on a very hard day, or even on a good day, the simple act of making your bed or reading 10 pages of a book can give us that sense of accomplishment, that what we do matters, that we matter. Notice that these tools get us off our phones, off social media, and connect us with ourselves and with each other. And not only can we create hope, but we can build upon it too. Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory proves that positive emotions can help us to expand our thinking, help us to find solutions more easily, help us to strengthen our relationships and build our resilience. This is the fuel that gets us through hard times, no matter how long or short those hard times last. Because what we know is that suicidal thinking is actually temporary. In fact, listen to these statistics from a study out of Houston. Of the participants surveyed, 25% said that they experienced suicidal thinking for 20 minutes or less. Another 25% for 5 minutes or less. Now, when we know that negative thinking is fleeting, we can remind ourselves to pick up a tiny tool to keep going one more day. I'm here because positive psychology saved my life. I spent years of my life thinking that I made a pact with Sophie, when what I now realize is that I made that pact with myself. Right here now, I'm here to renew that pact with myself, because that's where it all starts, with ourselves. And I'm inviting you to make a pact with yourself here today too, to take positive actions, to find hope, to devote yourself to yourself and your mental health, to build connection, to prevent suicide for yourself, for your children, for future generations, and to remember to keep going. Just keep going one more day.